Welcome to the Female Stoic podcast. My name is Stephanie Poppins, and I am an advocate for literary empowerment. That means I believe the examples set by the literary masters can broaden our life perspective, create increased self-awareness, and empower us to overcome the obstacles we encounter here in the 21st century. By listening and referring what we hear to Stoic philosophy, we can foster a strong sense of self and navigate the world more effectively. This podcast takes the form of both discussions and meditations. And if you like what you hear, you might consider looking me up on my socials, where I post empowering videos every day. Or you may like my classic audiobooks and original stories available on my website, neworldbooks.uk. Happy listening. Today we're talking about Bronte and Stoicism. Bronte wrote Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and she also wrote Agnes Grey, and Agnes Grey is going to be something I'm going to be reading once the Tenant has finished, which won't be long now, and relate it to your experience and hopefully gain something from that. Okay. Stoicism and Anne Bronte. As we probably know by now, the Bronte sisters were Charlotte, Emily and Anne, in that birth order. Somewhere in between, after Charlotte, there was a brother named Branwell. Before Charlotte was born, there was Elizabeth and Mary who died, and their mother died too. Lots of death in that family that they had experienced from an early age. So you've got three sisters, and a big part of their writing style was the Gothic. But Anne veered away from that slightly. So this idea of a dramatic, romantic ideal and a huge contrast between something that's dark and something that's light. There is an element of that in Wildfell Hall. But Anne was all about the realism. She didn't want to make her male characters picture perfect. She wanted to create a realistic portrayal of what she had experienced firsthand, because she was a governess and she had worked in a local aristocratic family's home, and her brother Branwell had had an affair with the lady of the house. So she saw all this. She's written from first-hand experiences about adultery, betrayal, the misuse of drugs and alcohol. And all of that she puts into her character, Arthur Huntingdon. So if you don't know the story of Tenant of Wildfell Hall, you've got Helen Graham, who was Helen Huntingdon. And she was part of an abusive marriage. She was abused by her husband. He was an adulterer and he treated her very poorly. And the novel is about her resilience and her coping in the face of adversity. And she does it in a stoic way, and this is why I am focused on her today. So we've got the Bronte sisters, and these sisters all wrote successful novels. Charlotte with Jane Eyre, Emily with Wuthering Heights, and Anne most successful novel was The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, although she did write Agnes Grey too. So a bit of a backdrop, and I do think adversity challenges us and it calls us to become or take the path that was determined for us. My path was definitely a Stoic one. It's worked for me. And it was the same for the Brontes. It was the same for the Bluest group, a group of well-to-do women in the 18th, early 19th century who were interested in the idea of Stoicism not as a masculine pursuit, but as something that women could adopt in order to be able to master their emotions and maintain this level of calm amongst the chaos, which is what Stoicism is. As sisters, they had experienced the pain of homesickness. They were called away to a school where there was a lot of illness and sickness. They obviously experienced the societal constraints upon women of that time. They endured the loss of family members. They weren't particularly well-to-do, so they had to find an income, so they had to go out and work, and that was difficult, challenging when you were asked to be a governess or somebody within someone else's stronghold, if you like, i.e. their estate. You don't really have much safety as a woman at that point. You are relying on the morals and values of the master of the house, the safety within. You are hoping that the people around you will be kind and just allow you to do your job. So there are very many elements that are external elements to these sisters that they have to keep at a distance and protect themselves from. Okay, they all worked as governesses, and obviously with that as well becomes demanding children, a lack of support from employees. The employees just want you to fix everything. Okay, they had limitations on their education, of course, because they were women, but their father was a clergyman and they had access to a lot of novels and a lot of literary works, both fictional and non-fictional. So this helped them with their studies. And of course, women weren't really taken seriously as writers at that time, so they had that challenge too. Charlotte's first novel was rejected by publishers, and they ended up publishing under pseudonyms, which were male names. So all of this, along with the threat to young health, the constant threat, and watching people around them dying of consumption, and the various illnesses that feature in their novels, it was quite a tough time. We think we got it bad. It was tough. And they battled on through and produced these wonderful works. Now, Tenant of Wildfell Hall, it's exposing the truths. It's exposing the hardships. It is not sugarcoating the life of women of that time, whereas most romantic novels to some degree did. With Anne, she developed a stoicism because she had to persevere as a governess. They needed money within the home. So she was working as a governess for extended periods. And of course, you have to protect yourself during that time, as I've said before. Her reported last words, she died very young, just after the age of 29, were "take courage." Okay, so despite these social and personal difficulties, her inner citadel remains strong. She keeps everything in tight She pulls it together, and remember, she's writing about devastating situations in a woman's life in that time when a man owned her property and everything else. She is writing about the experiences of a woman who goes through that, and she's seen it firsthand. And this domestic abuse, with Helen Huntington, for a woman of that time, doesn't get much worse than that. It's something that was known to be prevalent, and yet nobody spoke of. So it was very, very brave. She had a lot of courage to put that in writing, to hope that people would read it. And of course it mirrored her own spirit, that spirit of defiance. Because she's saying, I am going to write about this, whether it be socially acceptable or not. I have no control over how it will be perceived, how it will be accepted or discarded, but I do have control over my own voice. And within my inner citadel, I understand that my own voice is king and queen and everything else that comes in between, and I will be heard. And that's wonderful. Even if it is unsettling, even if people don't want to hear it, she's going to say it anyway, which is a very, very brave thing to do, isn't it? So, looking at one of her quotes, she says, "Smiles and tears are so alike with me. They're neither of them confined to any particular feelings. I often cry when I'm happy and I smile when I'm sad." And I like this quote because what it's saying is, I am a mixture of emotions, and no one emotion can be attributed to any one thing, and that's okay. I understand whichever emotion comes along, I will see it, I will feel it, I will experience it, but it doesn't define me. Sometimes I'm going to cry when I'm happy, sometimes I'm going to smile when I'm sad. These are not definitions of my character. It's just a definition of the emotion. And that's a separate entity, right? That's a really big, bold statement to make, and it's true. So when we feel heightened emotions, when we feel an extreme sense of whatever it might be loss, it might be anger, that is an emotion that is happening to us, but it does not need to control us. We need to let it out. It needs to happen. We need to give it voice, yes. But it's separate from us. It's just an emotion. And there has to be a detachment that we make as Stoics, so we understand that we're mastering this. It's not mastering me. We're not denying anything. We are mastering it so it has its place. Because otherwise, if we don't, we never know whether we're up, down, sideways, forward, backwards, any which way at any time. And that can lead to severe complications in our life. Life is chaos. So there has to be, one, a very good understanding of emotion. Two, how that emotion affects us. And three, an acceptance and a willingness to master it. So we keep this understanding just like Anne Bronte did. I need to say something about this because it's a dreadful thing. I understand that it might be received very poorly. I'm going to feel scared. I'm going to feel frightened. I might feel attacked. I might feel angry and bitter about the fact that it's not received well. But that doesn't control me because I'm staying true to my virtue, my morals, my standards, and I'm doing what I want anyway. Okay, fortitude, courage. That's what we're looking at here. These people, they've already walked the walk. We can learn lessons from that. That's what these people have done. That's what we're here to learn from. This is Anne Bronte. She says, I am satisfied that if a book is a good one, it is so, whatever the sex of the author may be. All novels are or should be written for both men and women to read, and I am at a loss to conceive how a man should permit himself to write anything that would be really disgraceful to a woman, or why a woman should be censured for writing anything that would be proper and becoming for a man. Don't censure me. If you've done something wrong, I'm going to say it. That's what she's saying. And don't disgrace women. So, Anne's demonstrating an unflinching commitment to her own set of values, which is one of the core principles of Stoic philosophy. When we have to do with vice and vicious characters, she says, I maintain it's better to depict them as they really are, as how they would wish to appear. She doesn't want to romanticise Arthur Huntingdon. She doesn't want to in any way portray him as being anything other than a thug and a philanderer and a drunk. That's why it's hard-hitting. A review in the London magazine The Times said, it represents women as superior in every quality, moral and intellectual, to all the men and characters which appear at once coarse, brutal and contemptibly weak. Yeah, she's taking a stand, and she's taking the opposite stand, but guess what? That's the ultimate slap in the face, because all that she's ever read is at a man's hand, and this is the problem. This is why we should be discussing female literature more, because there's not enough record of it as there is. We have to grab hold of everything we've got and really, really digest that, because so much of it has been etched out of, burnt out of history. And I'm here to say, well, you know what, we've got more than the others had before, who lived before us, and the others had that lived before them. So let's really learn from this. To represent a bad thing in its least offensive light is doubtless the most agreeable course for a writer of fiction to pursue, she says. But is it the most honest or the safest? So what she's saying is, I know that everybody is saying he's a bad man, but there is good to him. I know that everybody's writing in men with a heart, but I refuse to give Arthur Huntingdon a heart. I'm not going to portray him as anything other than a monster. She's saying, is it honest to portray a bad character like that, a brutal character, in his least offensive light? She's saying, you're just playing it safe if you do that, and I'm going to be more honest about this. So again, she is staying true to her inner voice. Unfortunately, she never wrote another novel after that. She had Agnes Grey, Tenant, Wildfell, and then she died from the same form of tuberculosis which killed her sister Emily and her brother Branwell. How bad's that? Is it better to reveal the snares and pitfalls, she says, of life to the young and thoughtless traveller, or to cover them with branches and flowers? So as we can see, she really is determined to speak her truth. And don't forget, she'd seen this firsthand. Her brother was a bit of a bully, and he was a drunk, and he was, he was a bit of an abuser. He wasn't a very nice character. She wanted to be honest about that. We finished today with a poem which was written by her sister Emily, and it's entitled The Old Stoic. And it goes like this. Riches I hold in light esteem, and love I laughed to scorn, and lust of fame was but a dream that vanished with the morn. And if I pray, the only prayer that moves my lips for me is, leave the heart that now I bear, and give me liberty. Yes, as my swift days near their goal, 'tis all that I implore, in life and death a chainless soul, with courage to endure. Thank you very much for coming, and see you then. Bye.
Hey, Stephanie here. Thank you for listening to the Female Stoic podcast. It is an honour, and I just want to say I really appreciate you being here. It's amazing the power of women in literature and the Stoic messages they have to share. Please, if you can, return the favour by spreading their words and sharing this podcast far and wide, so more of us can benefit from their wisdom. And don't forget to leave a review if you like what you heard. See you next time.